right, we're going to try that again. Sorry for that feedback, everybody. So welcome to the November All-America City Promising Practices webinar, Engaging Your Community Outside of City Hall. My name is Rebecca Trout, and I'm the director of the All-America City Awards program here at the National Civic League. The National Civic League is a 125-year-old nonprofit, and we aim to advance civic engagement to create equitable and thriving communities. The All-America City Award is our flagship program, and it began in 1949 to recognize exceptional civic engagement in local governments. This year, we will be recognizing 10 communities as All-America Cities for their inclusive civic engagement work that has fostered health and well-being in communities. To win, each community must demonstrate innovation, impact, equity and inclusiveness, civic engagement, and cross-sector collaboration by describing 3 successful efforts to address pressing local challenges around health and well-being. We are now accepting applications for the 2020 awards, which are going to be due in February 19th of 2020. We have a wealth of resources to assist applying communities. So if you're interested in applying or have questions, please email me and I'll get you connected with mentors and other resources that we have available. I will also be sending additional information about how to apply for the All-America City Awards in a post-webinar follow-up. While All-America City Awards celebrates great work through our awards program and competition, we are also aiming to share those innovative best practices, initiatives, and projects around the country through avenues such as this monthly webinar series. So today we will be highlighting 3 community events that are giving residents entertaining opportunities for engagement. We will be hearing about events in Denver, Colorado, Decatur, Georgia, and Mission, Texas. Today's presenters will be Kaylee Showers, Staff Assistant at the City of Denver's Agency for Human Rights and Community Partnerships. Kaylee will be speaking about Denver Days. Next, we will be joined by Scott Doyen, Principal Storyteller at Placemakers in Atlanta, Georgia, who will share about Porchfest. And lastly, we will be joined by Robert Rodriguez, a police officer in Mission, Texas, who will be talking about Mission's National Night Out. I might ask you that if you'll please mute yourselves if you are not speaking, because we get some pretty bad feedback if you are unmuted. And then if you have any questions during the presentation, please write them and type them in the chat box, and we'll be having each presenter address those at the very end of the webinar. And without further ado, I welcome Kaylee Showers to talk to us about Denver Days. Kaylee?
Hi, Rebecca. Thank you so much. Let me share my screen here with you all. All right. You guys see that okay?
Perfect.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much. And thank you so much for putting this together, Rebecca, and for thinking of Denver for this awesome series. This is a really cool opportunity to connect with leaders all over the country. And so we are humbled and very excited to be here today. As Rebecca said, my name is Kaylee. I work with the Agency for Human Rights and Community Partnerships. And I've got my contact information here and on my last slide. I'd love to connect with any and all of you following this webinar. If you have any follow-up questions, be happy to get to know you guys. So we'll get right into it. I'm going to be sharing with you guys a little bit about our Denver Days initiative today. We're here with our mayor, Michael Hancock, in the center there. So like I said, today we're going to be talking about the Denver Days initiative. And we just wrapped up our 7th year in August. So some really exciting stuff. We have now 7 years under our belt to kind of discuss the successes and challenges. I'll share with you a little bit of a background on the initiative, including implementation, budget, community buy-in, internal buy-in, process changing, and then where we see this growing in the years to come. So I wanted to share with you guys just a brief introduction on Denver leadership. We've got our mayor, Michael Hancock, and our city elected officials here. He was just elected for his 3rd term back in June, but he was originally elected in 2011. And I wanted to start this off with a brief introduction on the leadership, but also to talk about Denver's population growth, because that has certainly had a huge impact on the city and was a major reason why we wanted to, engage with our community and address this rapid growing city that we didn't know what to do with. So since 2010, Denver's population has grown over 20%, and it's consistently been among the top 10 cities with the largest numeric increases. From July 2017 to 2018 alone, we were within that top 10 city with the largest population and the largest numeric increase. And this is a trend that's remained consistent for the last 10 years, and we don't see it slowing down. So that's had a huge impact on the way that our city looks, the way that our neighborhoods feel and live. And so this is something that we definitely wanted to address with this Denver Days initiative, that element of neighbors knowing neighbors. I'll get into some background on the initiative. Back in 2011, while on the campaign trail, the mayor met a woman who has become so known in meetings around the city. Her name was Mrs. Birch, and she had lived in her neighborhood for 45 years. And while campaigning, she met with the mayor, and she told him that for the first time in 45 years, she didn't know the neighbors to the left or the right of her. And this led her to feeling unsafe. She, was a stranger in her own community for the first time. And the population growth certainly led to that. And residents were feeling this effect even back in 2011. So the mayor knew that community engagement in the face of rapid development was going to be a pretty essential part of his platform, and he made this a priority to address. So back in 2012, after he was elected, he convened city leadership, including our executive director, Derek Akubo. Just a little brief aside, Michael Hancock and Derek Akubo were both staffers of the National Civic League prior to their involvement in our civic leadership here in Denver. And that I like to note because you can really see that in their work that they've done in the city, addressing challenges and processes in the city, and how those processes can be improved have been a huge part of their work here in the city. And so when Mayor Hancock and Derek Akubo met, they wanted to make sure that they were improving processes and, brainstorming ways to address the growing area of concern, but also the opportunity to grow as a community, to connect neighbors. So they met in 2012, and I'll get into the nitty gritty of it, the implementation. Definitely buy-in from our internal partners was a huge part of this. So during a process mapping session, they were evaluating ways that residents obtained block party permits in the city. And they discovered that residents had to go through 4 separate departments and complete numerous forms, in addition to obtaining liability insurance, just to get a permit to host a block party in their neighborhood. And this obviously created huge disincentives, and it was a frustrating experience. It definitely discouraged neighbors from hosting block parties and getting to know one another. So they wanted to address this. They just didn't know quite how. So it took a huge collaboration on the part of our city leadership. We met over the course of 6 months. It definitely didn't happen overnight. So from November 2012 through the winter into spring, it was constant meetings with representatives from Public Works, Parks and Rec, wastewater management was a part of this, special events, all who had a role in handing out these block party permits, working with our residents. It was a matter of changing culture. We were consistently met with the answer, this is the way we've always done things. And we had to respond with, well, why? What can be changed? What can be improved? And as I said, it was a 6-month process to review, but meeting with our allies internally in the city was a huge part of that. That was an initial part. We discovered that we were the only municipality in the region to require liability insurance for block party permits. So we knew that could be changed. And again, meeting with the answer that was how things were always done. addressing why that was, changing that process, collaborating with the city was huge. Another piece that was really important was convening the residents of the neighborhoods. We knew that we wanted community involved, and not just in a supporting way, but a leading way. We wanted their input to be at the forefront. So we convened a committee consisting of 25 community members, and they had various backgrounds in small businesses, registered neighborhood organizations, neighborhood associations, and nonprofits. And we met with them to determine the vision, the mission, and the strategy. We wanted it to be totally community run. So we had the what and we had the why, and then we were working on the how. We needed budget, we needed sponsorship. We worked on waiving the requirement for liability insurance, and then we met with the community. We trusted their vision. We knew that they knew how to develop their own approach. And this was part of why I think this initiative was so successful, is because we acknowledged that every neighborhood was different. And so this sort of initiative should be developed by the people living in the neighborhoods, not dictated by city leadership. Budget and sponsorships, I kind of brushed over that, but that was a big part of it too, because we were working with no budget. We didn't have any funds appropriated from the city, so we were working entirely from sponsorship from community partners, nonprofits, businesses. So that was a huge part of it too. For our first year that we rolled out the initiative, that was 2013, we expected to have 50 community events, and we had 133. So it was a huge success, and I think all of the work that led up to implementing the initiative really attributed to why it was such a huge success. And also people needed this. It was really felt, with the city changing so rapidly. We needed something to connect neighbors with neighbors. We needed a way to get people out and helping each other and building community. That's really what we're doing. So 133 block parties, picnics in the park, and public service events. So primarily block parties, where we'd close off one residential block. We worked with a barricade company. We sponsored the barricades. So part of the incentive to host during Denver Days was the barricade fees we would cover through our budget that we had acquired from sponsorship. And then we would also waive any permit fees related to either the block party or hosting a picnic in a public park. And then also promotion on our website, on our social media pages. So in our first year, we surveyed residents, and we found that they had heard about the initiative from friends and neighbors, which was awesome. Over 44% of our hosts had heard about it just from a friend or a neighbor. So it was really community driven from the get-go. And you can see over the years, we've consistently had over 100 events, always primarily block parties. But public service events we've tried to fold in as well. So providing residents with tools so they can go out and do a neighborhood cleanup and things like that. It's definitely lower in numbers, but it's also a great way to build community for sure. In 2019, we just wrapped up our 7th year. We had just under 200 events, and it was a really successful year. We had some repeats that we've had over the years since the beginning. I know we've got a friend, Robert, who's going to be talking about National Night Out. That was a huge part of Denver Days when we were first looking at this initiative and wanting to encourage neighbors to get to know one another and looking at what we would do. We were initially going to do a day, and so we passed an ordinance that the first Saturday in August would be Denver Day. But then our committee convened of the 25 community members really wanted to incorporate the National Night Out Week. We realized that it coincided with that pretty nicely, and so we decided, based on our community feedback, that we wanted to make it a whole week. It also helped, we had input from business leaders who said, having just the one weekend wasn't ideal, and, people working in city agencies and people that wanted to engage their community throughout the week, they wanted to have more of an opportunity. Also, the start of summer, kids out of school, they're about to go back to school. We wanted to expand it from one day to 1 week. So the first week in August every year is Denver Days. And yeah, it's been really awesome just to see how, we definitely do promotion, we do marketing, but it's so community based and the word just gets out there and people are so excited, and we have people that are consistently a part of it, and it's really cool to see. So successes, outreach, like I said, has been huge. The fact that it's so community based has been really awesome to see. I don't know any other program that's like that, where we don't have to try that hard to get the word out there. We get people reaching out to us as early as November. Our Parks and Rec applications just opened up, and we have people already reserving their parks for next year. And so that's awesome just to see how much this has been adopted by the community and loved by the community. Improved process. So looking at the process that it took to just obtain a block party permit back in 2011 to now, people can go to our website, Denver Days, and just click on one link and fill out one form. It's very simple, and they'll usually get their permit within the next couple of days. Internal buy-in too has been huge. So in the months leading up to the week of Denver Days, we have members from Public Works, Parks and Rec, the Office of Special Events, and then our staff here in the Agency for Human Rights and Community Partnerships. We meet monthly, and then as we get closer to that first week in August, we meet weekly to update one another on the process, to discuss applications that are coming through. And so that improved process and also internal buy-in has been huge from the get-go. And we were definitely met with some no's in the beginning, but ultimately, just asking that question of like, why are we doing things this way? That was huge in, getting our allies in the other departments to get involved and to get on board. The community involvement kind of goes in line with the outreach, but it's just been so beautiful to see, and the way that people make it their own. Block parties, featuring food or, cakewalks and music, and then we'll have nonprofits that want to host something on their block, and then we'll have, churches that want to host something, and then we've got people that are incorporating National Night Out into this. So it's been really cool to see the way that the community drives this initiative for sure, and that leads into the self-driving aspect of this initiative has just been huge. The fact that we're able to still have no appropriate funds for this initiative is also huge. We've got typically, so we cover the barricades. That's our biggest cost. It's usually about $20,000 every year for the just under 200 events. We're able to get that sponsored through some really great partnerships that we have in the city. So that's been huge. Challenges, definitely. Public safety was a concern initially with the waiving of the liability insurance. That was a concern for many reasons. How do we do this? We had required the insurance for a reason. How can we get rid of that? How do we make sure that our public is safe? And growing times, changing climate, that's always a concern for sure, that we are consistently addressing with our internal partners for sure. Working with local police enforcement, they always have a huge presence at our events, which is awesome. Internal coordination, it's definitely a challenge, but it's also been one of our huge successes. Working with the different departments, it's hard to get all of these departments in line, and when they have their own processes, it's definitely hard to change. Cost and sponsorship, it was a success. It's also a challenge getting sponsors on board every year, and growing kind of goes into that, keeping the spirit of the initiative intact. We wanted it to be small. We wanted it to be local. So we get every year these huge private for-profit companies that want to tag along on this initiative, and keeping it small but also consistent, and then consistency in leadership too. It's changed hands many times over the years, so that's always a challenge for sure. I don't want to take too much time because I am really excited to hear from Scott and Robert, but briefly I'll just note, looking into 2020 and beyond, it'll be our 8th year, and we're excited to grow. We definitely want to grow our public service piece and continue to look at how we can make this initiative change. We've talked about extending it and making it a year-round initiative. We have a lot of partners that would love to see, kind of Earth Day focused to kind of get the public service aspect more focused on. And then, into the winter, we have a Snow Angels program where we help people shovel their walks, and it's very much in line with this initiative of neighbors getting to know neighbors. So we're really excited to grow this initiative and keep it going strong. And that's that for me. It was fast and quick, but I definitely would love to hear from you guys if you have any feedback or want to connect after the webinar. My contact information is there, and I know Rebecca has said we'll be open to questions at the end of the webinar. So we'll pass it along to Scott.
Yes, thank you so much, Kaylee. Appreciate that presentation and letting everybody know about the wonderful Denver Days here in Colorado. We do have a couple of questions in the chat, which we will share at the very end. But for now, we're going to go ahead and hand it off to Scott, who is going to talk to us about Porchfest.
All right, hopefully everybody can hear me. This is Scott Doyen, and as a just brief introduction, I'm a partner with an urban design and community development organization called Placemakers. I'm a resident of Decatur, Georgia, and the founder of the Oakhurst Porchfest that I'm going to talk about. So to start off, just a little bit about me, because it is somewhat instructive into helping you understand, one, why I was the kind of guy to do Porchfest, and two, how the event took shape and the kind of event it ended up being. In a previous life to what I do now, I was a decidedly less handsome version of this guy, Don Draper, which is to say I was an advertising guy, and in which your job is essentially building communities of support around products and services, which is a meaningful and valuable occupation. But I sort of, after a decade or so, lost interest in some of the products and services that I was working in the service of, and wanted to get into something more meaningful, and wanted to transition to a career where the product is each other. And that led me into placemaking and community development and doing related communications type work, but doing it in the service of that. One other thing that's instructive is that I am a textbook Gen Xer, which means that I gravitate towards doing things outside of the usual channels. Kaylee talked a lot about the kind of red tape that they had to overcome to make their initiative a success. And I'm sort of allergic to that kind of red tape and somewhat allergic to working in large committees as well. So you'll sort of see how that manifested itself in how our event came together. So our story. Porchfest is a phenomenon that began in 2007 in Ithaca, New York, where two friends in a neighborhood that had a lot of musicians, a lot of artists, kind of a funky sensibility. One day they noticed that people were just hanging out and rehearsing on their porches. And they thought, what if you coordinated all this into one day where everybody played on their porch and anyone could just walk up and down the street and enjoy music for free and meet neighbors and just hang out. And so they created Porchfest. And then jump ahead to 2010, I was at a national conference, an industry conference, and I ran into a friend of mine who's from Ithaca. He told me about Porchfest. They were on their third year at the time. And the more he told me about it, the more it sounded like an ideal match for my neighborhood, which is also a walkable historic neighborhood with kind of a funky vibe as well. So I did what we all do. I got super excited and I said, I have to do this. And then I went home from the conference and then I put the idea on the back burner for about 5 years because, life intervenes. But then in 2015, some circumstances in the neighborhood led to the Local Arts Alliance looking for event ideas. And that was my ticket in. And so I brought the idea of doing a Porchfest to the Arts Alliance and partnered with them. And I'll get into that a little bit more later. But what I want to stress now is the importance of a vision. to determine what kind of event you're going to have. So we developed a vision statement of having a grassroots community music festival where front porches become stages, yards become venues, and radical generosity and goodwill rule the day. That is, to the extent possible, we wanted to create an idea where people don't spend money and people don't make money. That the day is not about money, that it's about fellowship, it's about neighborliness, it's about being together and celebrating music and each other. So that's what we carried forth through, and that vision statement sort of directed every decision that we made in putting the event together, and it all added up to sort of a wonderful grassroots event that really does build community. So here's kind of a series of pictures to give you an idea of how it does so and what that sort of looks like. So first of all, that means great music. We have grown to be the largest Porchfest in the country. This past year, we had 240 bands playing over the course of an afternoon and on 240 separate porches. We had everything from folk to jazz. We had a all-girl punk rock band. We had 3 older guys who had a saxophone trio. We've had comedians. We have essentially every kind of music you can think of, from folk to hip hop to Americana to heavy metal. I mean, I believe we've had just about everything that we could have, and it's through music that people start to have these sort of serendipitous connections with each other that are so important to putting community together, because they'll just walk down the street and hear something that interests them, walk into the yard and sit down with other people. So it's the music which really is the glue that puts it together. And you can imagine with 240 bands, you don't have to walk very far to suddenly be in an entirely different venue with a totally different vibe. Let's see, next, neighbors. Whether you're, my neighborhood is a square mile. We have about 2,000 and change households. 240 of them were hosts, but pretty much everybody sticks around and comes out into their yard, walks their street, walks the neighborhood, and in the course of doing so, meets a lot of other people, meets up with friends, meet friends of friends, and basically get to know people who may even live on your own street that you never knew, which is, I think, another thing that Kaylee had mentioned, is that phenomenon of being on your street and coming and going with your daily life and not actually knowing anyone around you. And we found Porchfest has played a big part in bringing people out and forging those connections that can then be built on over the course of the year. There's hospitality, huge component of what we're doing. And a huge part of our mission to create a day of radical generosity. So we encouraged this a little bit on year one, but it has taken on a life of its own. All of the people who host, they just put out a spread for complete strangers who come and hang out in their yard. They put out snacks. They do promotions for the band who's appearing on their porch. They chalk the streets, they chalk the sidewalk, they put signage in their yards. They give away a lot of beer and a lot of cold drinks. And it's all, I mean, to be honest, as the organizer, it's really been quite astounding from my viewpoint, because we thought, wouldn't it be great if people could host people like you would host guests at your party, even though they're complete strangers in many cases. And I never expected people to step up to the degree that they have. That shows up in food as well. We decided early on that organizing a food court, bringing in food vendors, food trucks was something we weren't going to do, because it tends to create an economic barrier to people being able to participate. When the entry to get a basic couple of tacos might be $10, $12, and a drink. It creates a barrier that we didn't want to be involved with. So instead, we put out the word to the nonprofit community, to clubs and organizations in the neighborhood, and we said, hey, do you want to do fundraising? Well, we're going to generate an enormous crowd, and if you want to take advantage of it to help fund your good works, have at it. So we do not coordinate those people. We don't play any role in that. But what we have this year, I think we had 35 different groups who found a yard in the neighborhood that was willing to host them. They set up a food operation. They sold food. You could get hot dogs for a couple of bucks, and it was a much lower barrier. And participant, a lot of good organizations were able to do fundraising. We also encourage budding entrepreneurs, such as this little guy, who his house was hosting a porch, and so he set up a snack bar outside, and so we have a lot of kids also who are enterprising and find ways to make money. And we do have the occasional food truck who just makes their way into the neighborhood, but we don't play any role in coordinating that. But we do have restaurants within the neighborhood, and we encourage them to take advantage of the crowds. And the smart ones basically set up operations outside, and they have special offerings that are low cost, just grab and go kind of a thing, and they basically print money all day. Kids is another thing. My neighborhood already has kind of an ethos of free range kids, and the kids take particular advantage of it on Porchfest Day. They let their freak flag fly, so to speak, just like all the adults in the neighborhood, and everybody has a really good time. Bikes, as you can imagine, traffic gets pretty insane. Some of these bands draw 300 or 400 people. The streets get clogged basically the entire afternoon. And so we encourage people to bicycle, and they really do step up to that task. You'll see makeshift bike parking lots everywhere there's a good band playing. Dogs are another thing. We've started calling Porchfest Poochfest on regular occasions because of the number of dogs that it brings out. And not surprisingly, that's another element that helps build and create and stimulate community, because dogs are always something that people can immediately start discussing before they start exploring any other common ground that they might have. So lots of great dogs in the neighborhood. And then finally, just a culture of massive togetherness. Here's a band that drew 300 or 400 people. You can't even see the band, but they're off to the right. There's a mix of people who do and don't know each other, and all just groove into the same music. Another example here, different band, and here's the closeout we do at the end of the day, where we have a marching band play, and people just come to a park at the center of the neighborhood, and it's just a great blowout. So just a quick run through of things we've learned in putting a Porchfest together. The first one, I say choose the right bedfellows. My goal was to have the neighborhood be as empowered as possible, and to do as little as possible to empower people to do for themselves. So we created a very, very streamlined organization. It's me. We have the Arts Alliance, which is a nonprofit that can process grants for us and pay our limited bills. And Decatur Metro was a very prolific blog at the time that had massive readership. And so we partnered with them so that we could get news out to the community through a well-read media source without having to, sort of engage media and generate press releases and that kind of a thing. Second, don't ask permission. And I do not say this subversively as much as I would like to, but the point I'm trying to make is that Porchfest is a different kind of event. It's a grassroots event and not a top-down event. And so you want to avoid immediately subjecting yourself to sort of the status quo that is associated with more traditional type events. And so I would encourage anyone to be creative about it, and about exactly how you want to put it together, so that you don't have to ask permission, that you do it on a grassroots basis, and you do it in a way that conforms with your city's expectations, but doesn't necessarily find yourself subjected to the rules and regulations that might apply to a larger or a more formalized event, which leads to number 3, which is reframe the proposition. Most people think of events as something being done for them. And we want people in Oakhurst neighborhood to think of Porchfest as an event that is put on by them. And so we try to download almost every aspect of the event to the neighbors themselves. So if you're a host, then you're basically 1/240th of a festival organizer, and you can decide how you want to orchestrate your yard, your music, and how things go on around your property. Be careful what you wish for. We started out shooting for, our dream was 30 bands. We had 130 the first year. Now we're up to 240, the largest in the country. Number 5, share the streets. When you're doing something grassroots and you're not closing streets, you have to encourage people to be accommodating to one another. That's part of a spirit of generosity. And so we put signage all over the neighborhood encouraging motorists to steer clear of areas or prepare themselves to be inconvenienced. Think differently about security. Again, getting back to when you download responsibility for the event to the neighbors themselves, everybody takes a personal stake in it. We have 240 homeowners who are hosts. That's essentially 240 people who have a vested interest in making sure that things don't go wrong and fixing things if they do. So it's like having 240 deputies essentially keeping an eye on the event, which in partnership with the police officers that we do hire makes for a higher level of security than any other festival I've ever been to. And then last but not least, diversity rules. And I mean that in all aspects. Porchfests are always better when you have the most diverse collection of music, the most diverse collection of types of people, the most diverse representation of the economic and ethnic spectrums. Just any way that you can make just a celebration of differences, the more those reinforce upon each other and make for a much more interesting day. So coming out of this, our first year, I want to read this quote to you. It's what I loved about Porchfest is the vision of community it created. It was a vision of a peaceable world, a neighborly world. As the day went on, the thought kept recurring to me, this is what peacetime looks like. We need to spread this around. This got posted on the neighborhood Facebook page by a neighbor that I do not know, had never spoken to. And it was really quite touching to see what the event meant to people and experiencing it. And then just past this year, we did get an email from one of the bands where they said, you're amazing people and we love you. You create happiness at scale. And I thought, wow, man, that's a legacy. If we can keep this thing going, happiness at scale is one heck of an accomplishment. So that pretty much wraps up the overview. Here's some resources that I have for you. That's our website, an article that I've written in the past, which kind of summarizes pointers for getting Porchfest going. Also, the folks in Ithaca have put together a resource for starting your own Porchfest, and then there's a listing of every Porchfest in the country. My event was number 36, I think, and there's now about 140. So that wraps it up for me, and I will be available for questions if there are any at the end of the session.
Thank you, Scott, so much for sharing about that incredibly ambitious and successful event. Wonderful to hear about grassroots stuff like that. And we do have a couple of questions. We'll save those till the end. And again, encourage everyone. There's a little thought bubble at the bottom of your screen. That's the chat box. You can just click on that and submit any questions you have. Either Kaylee or Scott. And now we have Robert from Mission, Texas, who will be joining us to talk about Mission, Texas's National Night Out. Robert, the floor is yours.
Hi, everybody. I hope everybody's enjoying the webinar so far. Again, like she said, I am Robert Rodriguez. I'm Corporal Rodriguez, and I work with the police department here in the city of Mission. Just to tell you a little bit about myself, I have many hats around here. Part of it is I'm in charge of the community orientation department here with the police department. We handle several events for the city when it comes to block party, national night outs, presentations at the schools. Another part of my duties is a coordinator for the Mission Crime Stoppers here for the police department. So I'm here to talk to you guys a little bit about the Mission National Night Out. The one, everybody has different ideas about what to do on that particular day or just different events. Ours, I think that we've expanded from the beginning, and just like anything else, our city, to tell you a little about it, we are a border town. We have a population of about 88,000 people, and it kind of escalates because we have a lot of winter Texans that come visit. So they come visit, during the winter months. So they're stay here. So the National Night Out, we have it on a set date every Tuesday of August of each year. So we've kept that date every year because we wanted to make it consistent to where people know when our event is. There's other areas that have events on particular dates, but everybody knows that the first Tuesday of August we have the event here. You've heard of what the National Night Out? It's basically a program in where we try to bring police and citizens together, to work together to enhance the relationship between us. Here in Mission, we do several things. One of the things that I know a lot of people out there, they've seen us, we have officers actually in the live PD show here in Mission. So we have officers that they come and they're on national television on the A&E network. So we're that city in Mission, Texas. Once again, I think now, especially now, it's very important for us as a department, for the city of Mission to get involved and find ways to, make contact with the people and get that trust, because I know around the country, it's a challenging, it's a different time from when it was back in the day. So again, what can we do to make the relationship between us and the citizens better? The National Night Out, I think it's a very important one. And the way we do it here is we work with different communities. One of the biggest people that we work with, one of the biggest groups that we work with is the Mission Crime Stoppers. What we do is we have several fundraisers throughout the year to fund the project of the actual night out itself. We have a bowling tournament that comes up that we do in March every year. We do that bowling tournament. We get sponsors for teams. People sponsor for that event. They come play the tournament, but the money, we use some of that money for the National Night Out. We do have a golf tournament in June that we also use. We raise funds to get money for the National Night Out itself. We host the National Night Out. Again, every city, different people do different things. The way we do it in Mission is we do have block parties throughout the year. We have neighborhood meetings, we have block parties, we have different events in the neighborhoods. But the National Night Out, we wanted to have something that was bigger, that we can get the whole community involved and everybody at one location. We do it at a park here in the city of Mission called Leo Peña Placita Park. It's basically in the center of town, and everyone is invited. Everyone is invited to the event itself. What do we have? We have over 120 vendors from different people. We have different types of food that vendors come in and they sell products from tacos, hamburgers, french fries. We also have fruit cups and stuff like that. We have people that come in and they have vendors sell merchandise. You're talking about bracelets. There's people that sell hats. There's people that sell rings, just jewelry, different stuff that people are. We do have a lot of information on booth that we invite people to come in and provide information for the public. Since the National Night Out, it's a night where we give out information about different organizations that the city, that the area have. We do invite the MAD, nonprofit organizations to come and give out information. You know, some people that come out are like the Easter Seals, Area of Aging. We do have the food pantry. We have the Women Together. Those are just some people, some of the nonprofits that come out. You know, we invite the schools to come give information about the schools and some of the the products that they offer. Social clubs, we have the Lions, the Rotary, leadership clubs and mission. We get them involved in the National itself. One of the biggest things that we do for the National, I mentioned earlier that we do fundraise throughout the year. We fundraise throughout the year so we can be able to to do the stuff that we do on that particular night. Well, one of the biggest attractions is we do live in the border town again, and we have people that a portion of it that's a lower income, and then we have the higher. Well, the lower income people, there's a lot of people here that they look forward to National because we do provide school supplies that we give out on that night. What we do is we get some of those funds, we go to Walmart and we get some officers and some helpers to go, and we pack up the carts, and we get together, we pack backpacks. The backpacks, we get the school list that the students are going into school, whether it be in an elementary or whatever that school is, and we get a list of the school supplies that they're going to need for that year. And what we do is we put them in a bag, and on that particular day, we issue out, the school supplies. So again, we do this as part of the community to help them out with the school year, because it is in August. It's right before they're going back to school, and a lot of people use that for the year. On our National Night Out, again, it's one of the biggest events that we have in the city. I mean, it's grown from when we first started to a couple hundred people. Now we have several thousand. This past year was one of our biggest ones that we've had in a while. And slowly we've been adding things to the actual night itself as far as entertainment. We have, a couple years ago, we started bringing in a kids carnival. The kids carnival, I mean, we have about 8 to 9 rides that we have, and we close up a whole parking lot in the area. We bring these 8 rides, and we have kids from all ages come and get on the carnival rides. Now, with the fundraising, we do get good funds, so we're able to get the carnival rides for free. On the top right, you see a picture of Mickey Mouse and Minnie. Well, we have different types of entertainment, for them, and on the center stage, on the main stage, where we have we have the kids come up and we have them get involved. It's something like all of this entertainment is going to be free for the people there. Again, we do have the moon jumps for everybody to come. So, I mean, you're talking about like a whole area, and we try to service the kids from the smaller ones to the top. So some of the rides are geared for the older kids, for the junior high kids and stuff like that. We do invite certain entertainment. I know here in the Valley or in South Texas, we have a lot of mariachi singers. We have a bunch of dancers that, that they enjoy that kind of entertainment. So we do invite them and we have them be part of it. So we also get the local schools involved. And this is a big thing because this helps us interact with the schools, with the parents, with the teachers, with administration, with everybody in here. What this does, we have this local schools come in, and we have, again, I mentioned the mariachis. We have the mariachis come in and perform. And you know what? The people, they love mariachi. They love their kids coming in. So now we have the kids coming in. So now we have the families, the parents. So they follow them to come see the kids. We have cheerleaders from several schools. We have dancers. And if you've ever seen the drumline up close and personal, some type of drumline battle, those are awesome. And we have several of those going on. So that's some of the stuff that we've done there. I did mention that, we do, we try to do stuff for the community, for them to enjoy, right before they go back to school, right? So what we give them the school supplies. Well, there's a lot of kids that, in our area that, a simple service that we can provide for them, it would go a long way. What we did last year in the past 2 years is we've set up a tent. And this tent is we brought in several people to cut hairs. And last year they cut over 150 kids' hairs on that particular night. They have about 6 or 7 chairs, and we set them up with a tent and power and everything go. So you have these kids coming up and sitting down, and remind you they're getting ready for school. Just the little details that we do like that. I mean, they kind of see this and they want to come, for the services. We do give them, ice cream. We have them, go around, and this is all, because of the community itself. I mean, it's an effort that everybody likes to be part of it. It's funny, we do the crimes, again, I'm the coordinator for Crime Stoppers. We go up to the businesses, and you know what, most people out there, they want to help. They want to be part of the community. They want to, help in any way they can. So a lot of these, when stuff like this started happening, is I started getting the phone calls, hey, what can I do? What can I do to be part of your event? Because, again, it's grown, from a couple hundred people that we had several years ago to now we have in the thousands. We probably had about 4,000 or 5,000 this past year. So this project itself, I mean, as you can see, I mean, there's quite a bit of people. It does need to be a citywide project, though. The way we do it here in the city of Mission, the police department, is the city is very involved, and we're grateful that from the mayor, the council, everybody is very proactive, and they want to be a big part of the community. So what we do is we have every city department participate in a form or fashion for the event. Whether it be the Parks and Rec department, they'll come out and they'll set up a game for the kids while they're playing. Whether it's the museum, what they'll do is they'll come out and they'll do face painting for the kids. We'll have another department come out and get popcorn. But what happens is they'll get the directors out and they'll represent their department within the city, and they'll be giving back to the community. And that's something that comes from the city administration, which is great. It works out great. It sees the public that the city is involved, and they want to participate. They want to help, want to be part of it. So at the same time, I mean, you have officers. We have officers from other departments that we invite. So we have officers from the local, the state. We've had the Texas Department of Safety out here. We've had military vehicles. We have tons of police cars. So you have several police officers walking around. And one of the biggest things that I stress in the events, I said, you know what? Hey, this is the time for you to come to officers. This is the time for you to come say hi to an officer. And we try to, build that gap between the relationship that we have with the public. Hey, don't be scared to come say hi. We're normal people too. We smile. We have bad days. But you know what? We're all together, human. And it's okay for you guys to come up and ask questions and stuff like that. So the National Night Out is one of those nights that we try to get everybody involved. We try to get everybody involved with the vendors and everything. Well, I want to say about 2 years ago, we were helping, I started sitting back and I was like, okay, well, we're helping these people that are coming that would like our services. We're giving free school supplies. We're giving the haircuts out to people. We're giving some free food for some people, and we're having them come in, and we're helping the public out. Well, what about the person that just wants to come to a festival? What about the person that just wants to come to a festival that wouldn't mind, just going just to enjoy it? Well, we added another aspect to it. What we did is here we started bringing in a live band toward the end of the night. So what we did is, in the beginning of the lineup, we would put the schools, whether it be cheerleaders, the dancers. We would put the drum line. We'd have several acts in the beginning. Well, at the end of the night, we started bringing in somebody, to do the final concert. So the past 2 years, we've had a band what that did is that attracted that other portion of the population that, maybe they didn't have kids, or maybe, they had just gone out, to get some stuff. They'd need the school supplies, but you know what? They were going to go enjoy a night out, to hear some good music. And we've been very fortunate to where, the entertainers, again, I mean, for the most part, everybody wants to help out. We'll get, good pricing with them. And like this one here, Elida Reina, she's a Grammy Award winner, and she's singing inside the city park, like in the Super Park. She's actually, Elida Reina, she's actually up for the Grammys. She's in Las Vegas, I believe, right now. She's up for another Grammy this weekend. I believe they have the Grammy Awards. So, but when it comes down to it, I mean, they do it because they want to do it for the community. And when we team up together, we have great events for everybody. So, but I believe this part of it, last year we had another group, Duelo, which was a pretty good group. I believe this part of it, and it gears to the area, the lineup, the people that you want to hear music, but I think it added another aspect to the whole event itself for it. But with that being said, I mean, I think that the national, like I said, everybody does it differently here in the city of Mission. I mean, I think that the way it's going the past couple of years, it's grown to where we want it to go, and hopefully, we continue to grow. The only problem that I see it coming is the park that we're in. I mean, it's gone pretty packed, and we might have to get another location, just a bigger one, but it's just, and other departments, other cities come in and they're like, wow, you guys have a huge event. What we do here is we do the local neighborhood block parties in different areas throughout the year. That's what we do. A couple times a month we hit up different neighborhoods. This one, we try to get everybody together. We try to get everybody together. We do it at a bigger stage, and we highlight some of the stuff that the city has to offer. We highlight some of the resources that the people are able to get throughout the city through the county. And I mean, on this event, the people get to meet their sheriff, the police chiefs from the local communities. They're all here, and everyone. It's kind of neat to see, all the law enforcement, all the chiefs in one area, and get to talk to the kids from the county itself. So, but yeah, this is our event. It's again, we hope that it continues to grow. And we're always looking for new ideas for it too. But with that said, I'm going to go ahead and finish up by saying that, every year we have this on the first Tuesday of August, and this is our way of doing it. So.
Great, Robert. Thank you so much for sharing about Mission's National Night Out. I love today that we have heard about 3 very distinct events, all hosted by different people and done either, from the top down or from the bottom up. I hope that everyone has gotten some ideas of how you might be able to bring a similar event to your community and how it can create engagement. We were hoping to have a little bit of time here at the end for questions, but I don't think we're going to have enough time to get everyone's addressed. So what I'm going to do is, if you submitted a question, I will just connect you with the speaker, and we'll have them reach out to you directly with that question. So without further ado, I just want to thank all of our presenters again, Kaylee from Denver, Scott from Decatur, and Robert from Mission. Really appreciate you guys taking time to be with us today, and appreciate all of the work that you guys are putting in your community to increase engagement. And I will be sending up a follow-up email with the recording and slides from today, as well as some additional resources that were shared by the presenters. So please be on the lookout for that. And we'll also hope that you will join us for our December webinar, which is actually going to be featuring how you can apply for the All-America City Award. We'll be hearing from a past jury member, as well as a couple of past winning communities. So don't miss out on that if you're interested in joining us in the All-America City Award competition in 2020. So everyone, enjoy the rest of your day, and thank you once again.